This is me. It's 2 a.m. in Italy. I've got horrible food poisoning. Everybody's asleep. And I'm sat here thinking, which one do I actually reach for? Not which one has better specs, not which one won the charging test. Which one do I actually want right now? And that question, that specific question, is what this whole video is about. Let me take you back to where it started before things got ugly and my wife, a 4-month-old, and I drove from Germany across the Alps all the way down to Italy to visit family. 450 kilometers, 2 countries, 1 baby, limited sleep, 0 controlled conditions, and both handhelds came with us. The Steam Deck OLED, Steam's immortal machine, 2.5 years old, still the one a lot of people keep reaching for. Even now, when reaching for it costs more than it ever has. And, on the other hand, the Nintendo Switch 2, almost a year old, and Nintendo's bet on what handheld gaming should look like today. Maybe you've been thinking about getting into handheld gaming and you can't decide. Maybe you already have one and you're wondering about the other. No studio, no benchmarks, no spec charts, just a road trip, and whatever happened, happened. And before we even left Germany, both devices went onto the car's USB-C. The Switch 2 charged immediately. The Deck connected. It showed the charging icon, but the battery kept dropping anyway. So the reason's simple. The car's USB-C doesn't deliver enough wattage, and the Deck needs 45-watt USB-C power delivery. The Switch 2 will charge off almost anything. So if you travel with the Deck, make sure you bring a dedicated 45-watt USB-C PD car charger. Small thing. Real difference. First stop was in Austria because the baby needed feeding and everybody was very tired. Nobody wanted complexity, so instantly the Switch 2 made sense. And there's almost no friction here. You grab it, you're playing. It doesn't ask anything of you. And when you got maybe 10 minutes before life interrupts you again, that matters more than any spec on a sheet. I got a quick Metal Gear session. The baby was fed and then we kept moving. And that evening in the hotel, it was a different energy entirely because everyone was asleep, the room was quiet, and this time the Steam Deck OLED came out. I fired up Neo, which I've been playing quite a bit lately. I connected the Deck to the hotel TV with my little Ugreen dock. And honestly, it worked flawlessly, no fuss, no setup drama, just one cable, and suddenly you got a proper console experience in a room that's supposed to just be a place you sleep. And the Deck has this quality that's hard to describe. It doesn't feel like a compromise. It feels like you brought your gaming setup all with you. Your library, your saves, your history. The Switch is for stolen moments, while the Deck rewards the ones where you actually have space to breathe. Next morning we pushed on towards Italy and found a very nice section of the road that actually reminded me of the Eiger Nordwand's track on Gran Turismo. Loved it. And we stopped at Lago di Misurina for a milk break with prime alpine views, the baby doing his thing. Both devices came out. Same game, beat the champions, and I wanted to actually check direct sunlight because I wanted to see which one performs better. Both held up well, I have to say, but the Steam Deck actually felt a little bit more natural outdoors, lighter, and less like you're making an effort. By the way, if you notice the cases both devices are traveling in, those are from JSAUX, and I've been using them for a while now. I really like them, and I think they held up excellently on this road trip. There's a link in the description if you want to check them out. Eventually, we did reach our destination, and that meant reality returned for a little bit, and I had to do some work, emails live, so I sat on the porch, finished what needed finishing, and then without really deciding to, picked up the Steam Deck to play All Hail the Orb. Why the Deck? Well, honestly, I don't fully know. Maybe it was the mood, maybe it was the game, but the Deck invites a different kind of session, longer, a bit more intentional, less like filling time and more like choosing to be somewhere. And that's what I did. If you're wondering, both devices connect to Wi-Fi without any drama. Weirdly though, and I know it sounds a bit ridiculous, but I still prefer the way the Switch connects. Something about Nintendo's interface just feels very satisfying. Shouldn't matter, but it does. So in the evening, both devices came out again, and the Switch started the session playing something lighter and lower stakes, while the deck finished it. I played Lunar Abyss, which I'm rather enjoying at the moment, and it got pretty late, later than I planned, and I noticed that was becoming a pattern, the fact that the Switch usually started the session while the deck usually finished it. The next day, we had lunch with two really old friends, and this is where things got interesting, because the first guy is a long-time nerd. He just built himself a monster PC setup, including two 32-inch dual ROG OLED monitors that he insists is for work, and he picked up the Steam Deck, held it against his ginormous hands, inspected it in a way that a surgeon inspects something that they're about to remove, and just put it down. And to be fair, this man barely accepts laptops as real gaming devices, so handhelds never really stood a chance. Then I handed him the Switch 2, same result, different reasons. The Switch was just too light to Nintendo for someone whose baseline is a custom PC rig, and neither of these was ever going to win. And that's fine, because he's not the person for this video. Meanwhile, while the deck was being ceremonially executed, in the other corner of the room, my other friend, father of two, kids upstairs, quietly disappeared into the Switch. One sneaky round of FIFA became another, big grin on his face, and for a second it genuinely felt like we were back in our student flat, worn out couches, late nights, endless matches. Those were the days, and the Switch 2 has that quality. It doesn't need explaining, you just hand it to someone and they're just in. And then the trip kind of stopped being content, because I got absolutely destroyed by food poisoning, which also ended most of the filming. And that evening I stayed in horrible pain, everybody was out, and I just picked up the Steam Deck OLED with Lunar Abyss. And here's the thing that nobody puts in a comparison video. The moment when you genuinely need a handheld isn't a road stop or a hotel TV test. It's actually a situation like this. Late at night, you can't sleep. Maybe you're in pain like I was. I hope you're not going to be. But the room is dark and quiet, and you just need something to disappear into. Not a party game, not something you hand to somebody, just something that's yours. And that's where the Deck OLED screen still does something special, I feel, because in a dark room, that display is so beautiful and completely absorbing, and it doesn't feel like a portable compromise. It feels like the whole point. Not because it won any test, just because it was exactly what I needed. So, after all of it, the charging stops, the hotel TV connections, the outdoor breaks, the friends test, the quick 5 minutes windows, or the long painful evenings, the real question was never which one performed better. It was always which one I naturally kept reaching for. And the honest answer is, it depends entirely on the moment. Because the Switch 2 started most sessions, the deck finished them. The Switch 2 fits more naturally into life, into family trips, friend gatherings, stolen windows, easy handoffs. It has almost no learning curve and almost no resistance. You hand it to someone and they're just in. But the Steam Deck OLED feels more personal, more immersive, more like a choice you make rather than a device you grab. And if you're buying your first handheld and your life looks anything like this trip, so you got kids, you travel, it's interrupted evenings, social gaming, the Switch 2 is probably the right answer. But if gaming is the kind of thing that you come back to when everything else is done, when the room is dark and everybody else is asleep, and you want to disappear into somewhere properly, well, the deck still does something nothing else does. And I should probably mention that the week we got back from this trip, Valve raised the price of the 1TB Steam Deck OLED to $949 US. That's nearly $1,000 for hardware that's 2.5 years old. That's a hard number to justify. I understand why people are walking away. But here's what I know. I took mine across the Alps with a baby and food poisoning, and I still reached for it at 3 a.m. Now, whether that's worth $949 to you, only you can answer that. But if this video helped you figure out which one is right for your life, hit the like button because it helps more than you think. And if you want more real-world handheld content without the benchmarks and the lab tests, do subscribe because that's exactly what this channel is for. So, by the end of this trip, here's what I realized. The Switch 2 is great, is a lot of fun, and it fits more naturally into your life. But the Steam Deck OLED still feels more personal, more immersive, more like carrying your gaming history with you. And honestly, depending on the moment, both were exactly what I wanted.